Thank God it's Full Build Friday. I've got a build here that I've been ruminating on for quite a while. Though I was debating on doing this one, because I usually don't like doing two builds from the same source 2 weeks in a row. Nevertheless, I want to take a look at the dualistic death deity from League of Legends, Kindred, the Eternal Hunters.
Never one
without the other.
Before we begin, we're now on Patreon. You can get builds and monsters 3 weeks early there, as well as unique items and extra content. Even a little bit helps us go a long way. Now, building a creature, a character that in lore is essentially the incarnation of death, isn't easy, and likely won't match the might or grandeur of that. But I still want to take a shot at it. We just have to start by establishing some build goals. The incarnation of death in Runeterra was once known as the Grey Man, but in its loneliness, it divided itself in twain to become Lamb and Wolf. Lamb uses her arrows to grant swift release to those that accept their death, while Wolf savagely chases and hunts down those who fight against their fate. They appear in-game mostly as Lamb, accompanied by Wolf, a marksman who fires a flurry of arrows to fell her foes, along with attacks from her companion. While on the hunt, creatures and champions can gain the Mark of the Kindred. When she slays these marked targets, she gains a stack that increases the range of her base attacks. She demonstrates some mobility with her Dance of Arrows, which is a short dash accompanied by the launching of 3 arrows. The cooldown of this is lowered if she's in her Wolf's Frenzy, and she also gets a brief boost to attack speed after using it. Speaking of this Wolf's Frenzy, this creates an area that Wolf prowls, snapping at foes while slowing them. As a passive effect, this ability can provide her with some healing after she has moved a bit and then attacked. Mounting Dread has Lamb launch a shot that slows the foe, and once she's struck that target 3 times, Wolf pounces to deal extra damage. Her ultimate then is Lamb's Respite, which creates an area where no creature can die for a duration, at the end of which all creatures within receive healing. In Legends of Runeterra, Kindred has Quick Attack, slays enemies that she has marked at the end of each round, and gains greater strength and toughness the first time each round an enemy is slain. For my take on this build, I do want to put in some effort to make sure that Wolf feels like a solid part of the kit. Lamb, rather ironically, has the lion's share of the focus in pretty much everything, and I don't think I can prevent that entirely, but I definitely want Wolf to get his day. Now as for Lamb, she's an archer with some decent mobility who fires a multitude of arrows. Optimally, we'll want to get some representation of their incarnation of death in there, and I do think her ult will be the hardest to represent, though I have some ideas for that. Getting right into it, I'm mechanically drawn to the human ancestry for Lamb, which is a little boring. However, we will add to that a bit with the Duskwalker heritage, which has some connections to Psychopomps that I think suit her solidly. However, we won't be tapping into feats of it just yet, as we're going to be using the Human's Natural Ambition feat. We'll get into what we get from this when we get down to her class, and so we will just finish off the ancestry for now with ability boost to her dexterity and charisma, which will be important in bringing to life the ideas that I have. Perhaps opposite of that idea is the Scion of Slayer's background, which I mostly took for the undead lore. This honestly leans a bit more into Wolf, who hunts down those that refuse to accept their death, and I would say that undead absolutely fall into that category. This provides us with training in athletics and undead lore, but rather than giving us a feat, it instead gives us Disrupt Undead as a divine innate spell. I think this fits with the general idea of the character, though I'm not 100% on the ability boost to strength. However, a free boost to dexterity will certainly prove useful. When it comes to our class, I did have a bit of a debate. I think you could consider something like Summoner if you want Wolf to be a bigger part of her kit, but that gets real rough on a couple aspects for Lamb. So what I ended up going for was the good old Ranger. We can have this be a dex-based class to better facilitate our archery, and on that same line, Lamb also gets the Hunt Prey action. This lets her attack her prey in her second range increment without penalty, referencing the range increase that she normally gains from gathering her stacks. Along with that, we get a Flurry Hunter's Edge, letting us make a multitude of attacks with greater ease, whether that be as Lamb or Wolf. This will be handy for Dance of Arrows especially, and Wolf's Frenzy respectively. However, when it comes to representing Wolf, we'll need to use the Animal Companion feat. Not to be too predictable, I would go for the Wolf Companion. I did look at the Shadowhound, but the slowing support benefit of the Wolf Companion fits just a bit better. With the extra feat from our ancestry, we can also slot Hunted Shot into the build. It's 2 shots instead of 3, but condensing them down into a single action is a good step into representing her Dance of Arrows. Now, as a ranger, we start with training in nature and survival, before taking further training in acrobatics, diplomacy, intimidation, and religion. When it comes to her ability scores, I boost Lamb's strength, dexterity, wisdom, and charisma. Obviously, we want her using a bow, but the style of her bow and her playstyle makes me feel less longbow and more shortbow. Or perhaps something like a gakgung, which is kind of an in-between the two. It does also come with the propulsive trait, which is why we'll be bolstering her strength a bit as well. As is tradition, or at least feels like it, second level sees us take a Sorcerer Dedication. Before I get too deep into it, I will say that I think you could do this build without the magic of a caster archetype. Now doing so does mean skipping her ult, but if that's fine with you, I'd probably consider an Archer Dedication instead. But if you are sticking with Sorcerer, I'd go ahead and grab a Psychopomp Bloodline to further tie that to her, take skill increases to Medicine and Stealth, and then maybe take cantrips like Guidance or Void Warp, since she also needs to slay the living. After all that though, we can go ahead and grab Quick Jump. This will be important in representing her Dance of Arrows, since now she can jump as a single action, and then immediately follow that up with a Hunted Shot, and then either take a third shot or command Wolf for her final action. It has been a minute since we made a ranger, so you might have forgotten that they gain will expertise at level 3, as well as a skill increase that will make our Lamb an expert in athletics. I'd look for Fleet as her general feat, increasing her speed to better hunt down prey, and to increase the max range of her jumps, since they are a little gated by it. If you're seeking to stick to the spells of the Sorcerer, the basic Sorcerer spellcasting can give us Infused Vitality for now, to help her take out undead. Or, she could consider the Archer's point-blank stance to better battle when forced into close quarters. I'd also look at Experience Tracker for a skill feat, which will help us fulfill the Hunter part of Eternal Hunters, allowing Wolf and Lamb alike to ensure that their prey gets no time to rest. For this prowling pair of pruning predators, we pick ability boost to Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. They gain Ranger Weapon Expertise, Trackless Journey as a sort of flip on their latest skill feat, and then a skill increase to become an expert in Religion. As a Psychopomp, we can have them take the Ghost Hunter feat. This is a fun little feat in that if her weapons aren't already magical, she can treat them as such when attacking incorporeal creatures. But if they're already magical, they can instead gain the effects of the Ghost Touch rune without taking up a rune slot. After that, we get back on track with boosting Wolf by taking the Mature Animal Companion feat at level 6. In addition to bolstering Wolf, we'll also take Powerful Leap to extend the range of Lamb's little jumps, in case she wants to just take a single action to leap rather than having to roll for a proper jump. We can also get Death Knell here, which provides her with a way of growing more powerful when she slays her enemies. Its effects are far from exact, they're only temporary, but the spirit is there to match her passive. Lucky level 7 is pretty significant, as the ranger gains natural reflexes, perception mastery, weapon specialization, and finally a skill increase to become a master in religion. I would also consider Feather Step as her general feat here. I think the hops are better for representing the actual effects of her Dance of Arrows, but a step might also help to work towards it. For this death-dealing, debatably deific duo's level 8, you can use Hamstringing Strike to represent the initial slow of the Mounting Dread. I like that this is a single action, but not that you have to take a -2 penalty to use it, just to get a small penalty to speed. Though at least it has a solid duration. Outside of that, Consult the Spirits could seem a bit strange, but I like the idea that the pair can call upon the spirits of those that have passed on to answer their demands. We can also take a look at Anointed Ground for Lamb's Respite. The minute-long casting of this is not great, but it provides us with some protective effects akin to her ultimate. Following on from that, I like level 9's Nature's Edge, while just finding his ranger expertise handy, if basic. The skill increase to become a master in athletics is of course good, and then we have a little something in the form of Quietus Strikes. One of the weaknesses of a ranged build is the lower damage that they often have. Although this isn't much, it does add a little bit of extra damage as long as our targets are living or undead creatures. So essentially, screw constructs. We begin our level 10 with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Wisdom, and Charisma. We'll obviously have to take Incredible Companion for Wolf, and while technically the finesse-focused Nimble advancement is probably better mechanically, Savage is just a far better fit for him. This level does also feature Break Curse, which falls into a similar vein as her Consult the Spirits. It doesn't represent anything mechanically that we've seen the character do, but I feel like it fits her, and their power as a sort of deity. There's another nice cache of class features at level 11, as the Ranger gets Medium Armor Expertise, Unimpeded Journey, and Warden's Endurance. Along with that is a skill increase, which will make us an expert on survival, and we can finish it all off with Incredible Scout. My idea behind this is that as a jungler, Kindred can often decide when a fight starts, and with that foreknowledge, she can help her allies get a jump on their foes. For the level 12 of our terrifying Terminal twosome, it tracks that we take Expert Sorcerer spellcasting, and either the Archer's Double or Parting Shot. For the former of these options, we can use it to gain Dispelling Globe, which used to be Globe of Invulnerability that kind of worked for her Lamb's Respite. Now continuing our trend of unusual skill feats, all of the animal feels as though it would fit well, since I imagine that these two have enough respect to not let a death go to waste. And I just can't see Wolf not scarfing everything he can down.
Peacefully they go.
Hungry we follow.
With the ever-lucky level 13, we find Martial Weapon Mastery, and a skill increase to become a Master in Survival. Spirit Soother is definitely a bit more lamb than wolf, and in either case can help them find more spirits to put to rest, as is their wont. Through Bloodline Breath at level 14, we acquire a wealth of spells, with perhaps the most notable ones being Heal and the Mark of Blood, which may thematically help with the Mark of the Kindred. Furthermore, our Expert Sorcerer spellcasting leads to us gaining the Breath of Life, which can be used to save an ally from death, per her Lamb's Respite. It's only a single target, but I think it's a good idea. If you're sticking with the mundane though, you could just go Skirmish Strike to get a Step-In Strike as a single action. As to her skill feat, I'd consider Planar Survival. In their natural state, Kindred aren't entirely of this world, so this is something that helps them exist in scenarios that more mundane adventurers would never expect. Looking at level 15, we start with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma, before we gain Greater Natural Reflexes, Greater Weapon Specialization, and Perception Legend. In addition to that legendary proficiency, Lamb also becomes a legend in Religion, being a semi-divine figure herself. Fast Recovery is another classic general feat that I often try to include on these League builds, since characters there do naturally have health regen. For the Sweet 16 of these synonymous Simpatico Slayers, we see Specialized Companion as another means of enhancing Wolf. Digging into the mechanics a bit, wolves are designed with dexterity in mind, so an optimal pick would be something like Ambusher. However, I personally feel that options such as Bully or Wrecker, which are a bit more strength-based, better suit our wild and willful wolf. Along with that, I'd work in Sacred Defense. Something this build has been missing is some healing, and while I do actually now realize you probably just could have grabbed Vampiric Feast or something like that for it, this also gives her an ability to shore up her health, per the healing passive of Wolf's Frenzy. And actually on the topic of that ability, you could consider Horde of Underlings as another way to represent Wolf dashing about the area, though I suppose you could just do that as a companion anyway. Following on with something a little easier, level 17 has Masterful Hunter, a legendary skill increase to Athletics, and then the absolutely amazing Elethros' Decree. This specifically requires the use of a bow, which meshes perfectly with Kindred's combat style, and furthermore just modifies her next bow strike to potentially slay those whose time have come. For our 18th level, we can gain some Master Sorcerer spellcasting, mostly so that she can fill out her spells and increase her proficiency, as well as the Cloud Jump skill feat. Always a good one, and with how much jumping Kindred does, it feels especially appropriate. Though, I guess if you want to get technical, her jumps are more about quantity rather than quality. We're coming close to the end with level 19, which begins with Medium Armor Mastery, Swift Prey, and a skill increase to become a legend in Survival. And in line with that a bit, we'll also gain True Perception. This means that Lamb will constantly be under the effects of a 6th rank True Sight, which just feels right for these so-called Eternal Hunters, you know? It's the curtain call for this couple of Quietus Causers, but we'll begin the end with ability boost to Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. With the amount of attacks that she makes, I would use Time Dilation Cascade as her final class feat. This works the best with her Hunter's Edge, but I also kinda wish that there was a Capstone Ranger feat that had to do with the Animal Companion, just so that we could make Wolf a bigger part of her build. Finishing off said build is Legendary Survivalist, which I took for similar reasons to the last week's Callista build. Except where Callista was an undead, Kindred is a full-on death deity, who likely shouldn't be bothered by paltry things such as food or temperature. One final thought is that you could add Moment of Renewal as an 8th rank spell that gives another feel akin to the heal from her Lamb's Respite. The main idea behind playing Kindred will be managing your actions between taking shots with Lamb's Bow and commanding Wolf. When you first move Wolf into an enemy's range, I would probably use his support benefit to slow that enemy and make it harder for them to reach Lamb while she fires from afar. Alternatively, if Wolf is already in melee and has his advanced benefit, I'd go for his knockdown, so that it's even harder for enemies to reach Lamb. And then they'll also be off guard to her attacks. She can slip in spells when the opportunity arises to restore herself and her allies, empower them, or finish off foes with Death Knell when the opportunity arises. Outside of the Sorcerer archetype in a free archetype game, I'd probably look at the Soul Warden or Exorcist options. Both fit with Kindred's role as a psychopomp, though I do think the second of them is a bit more mechanically useful. Additionally, you could go for the Archer. I've already talked his options up a bit, but one thing I think I might have missed on mentioning is Parting Shot, which works with her mobility, while also letting her snap a swift shot at a suspect. As Kindred would tell you, all things must come to an end, and it is about the end of this build. But before we go, let's take one last look at what we've made. Kindred the Eternal Hunters, also known as Lamb and Wolf, are a Duskwalker human ranger and her savage wolf companion. We use the Scion of Slayer's background to lean into her being an aspect of death, including one that wants to deliver restless souls to their end. How much wolf features in the build is kind of up to you, but I tried to make him as large a part of the Lamb's kit as I could with the array of animal companion feats that we invested in. The Ranger class means that we can use almost all of the bows in the game to hunt down our prey, and our Flurried Ranger aspect further helps her unleash them in a rapid fire. We can actively mark a target with Hunt Prey or the Mark of Blood spell, and while slaying a creature doesn't provide us with extra range, she can use Death Knell to at least briefly empower herself with the death of another creature. Furthermore, simply using the Hunt Prey ability does actually let her ignore the penalty for attacking her hunted prey in her bow's second range increment. For the dash of Dance of Arrows, we have effects such as Quick Jump and Powerful Leap to better bound about the battlefield, as Hunted Shot lets her take 2 swift shots as a single action, which she could follow up with a third, or give a command to Wolf. This command could lead into Wolf's frenzy as he dashes about and ravages foes, while his support benefit does inflict a slow on creatures, while his advanced maneuver can full out knock people prone. You might need to rely on Lamb's spells for the healing associated with this, or pretend the temp HP from Sacred Defense represents it instead. The initial hit of Hampering Shot allows Lamb to slow foes before she 6-wolf on them to finish them off in a way meant to represent her mounting dread. And then that just leaves us with Lamb's Respite, and this is actually the main reason I had to archetype into a caster. Breath of Life lets her save an ally from death on a singular basis. Moment of Renewal can affect a number of targets with healing, as could a 3-action heal, and we could even consider something like Death Ward to guard an ally against death effects. With a whistle, Wanton Wolf and Woolly Woman wade into war in the wilds with Willful Y4, whittling at the wellness of warriors, weaklings, and those well in the way of either. Let me know what you think of the build and what other ones I should do. If you dig what I've done here, let me know with a like and a subscribe. I want to give a big thanks to the folks on the Patreon, with a special shout out to the Orc Overlords, that being Decaffeinate, Robert Miller, Shai Benster, and Vorthis. You too could head on over there for early access to the vids and extra content. Either way, thanks for watching and have a fantastic Friday.
When you see us,
It's too late.